I actually built a professional life where I never had to rely on anybody. So you need an understanding of who you are. So the worst advice I've ever received was find your purpose. And then we start looking at the things that got in the way and start changing those and adapting those and then fitting the goal into their life so they can actually make the commitment to it. So I finally high-five that person and then I walk away. And I do that 5 times today. That's my commitment. What is the level of accountability you need to be successful? Instead of just kind of diving in and being like, I'm going to use accountability all the time.
There have been studies that like when you're sleeping and you can hear your dog, like people with dogs, if you can hear your dog breathing, you sleep better. You can sleep deeper.
Welcome to the Willpower Podcast.
Someone was telling me how there have been studies that like when you're sleeping and you can hear your dog, like people with dogs, if you can hear your dog breathing, you sleep better. You can sleep deeper.
Is that because of, it could be a variety of reasons, but is it safety or is it?
I think it could be because I feel a lot safer just having a dog. Not even that she's not like an aggressive dog, but knowing that like she's kind of on alert
All the time.
Yeah. And she's going to wake up and if anything were to happen, she would get me up.
And yeah, they have this like sixth sense of their home.
Mm-hmm.
I don't know. Is she a barker with like a mailman and packages? And...
She'll bark if someone knocks. Yeah.
Okay.
She's not very vocal, so she doesn't bark a lot.
I have a Napoleon complex with my dog. He's a little 15-pounder that you walk on the other side of the street
and he
is like, "Who are you?" Then of course, instead of standing there and looking at him, they walk away. So he thinks that he was successful, and now that's all he does.
Yep, my parents' dogs are like that. They have 2 like 20-pound dogs that are just like the craziest dogs. Like they will go absolutely nuts at anyone walking in. They'll like bark at us coming in until they come up and like say hi. Yeah, so it's
like a good thing, right? But then at the same time, it's like, okay, maybe not.
Yeah. In the worst case, it would be a good thing. But in the normal day-to-day, it's never.
So Tiffany has this thing called Farm Box, which is super cool. It's locally based. They do all like local foods and vegetables and fruits and meats and all that kind of stuff. For some reason, they deliver at 2 a.m. It's like, so we get like ring notifications or something, but he's just sleeping. And I was like, bro, you bark at everybody.
This is the time.
This is the time I need you to show up.
They deliver at 2 a.m. Does your food stay good that long?
Yeah, like we worried about that, but it's packed with like ice and stuff. Okay. But so we've had 2 a.m., we had 4 a.m., and just now they delivered at like a normal time. But we tried to get them to change it up because we were worried about that.
Yeah.
But it wasn't during the summer.
Okay. So. Yeah, that's weird that they would deliver at that time.
Yeah, especially like raw meat. But
yeah. Okay, so willpower, the willpower equation. So it sounds like something you've kind of thought about in the past.
Well, everything I talk about is around self-leadership and living for yourself.
Mm-hmm.
The book is Becoming Fearless. And so it all relates to how do you get yourself to do things. And when I think about willpower, people used to say to me a lot, like, Ben, you have incredible willpower. And I'm like, no, I just make it easy for me to do things I care about. That's it. And that's kind of the problem is we build an environment around ourselves and that is not oriented towards serving what we want to have willpower towards. Mm-hmm. And so we kind of we make it harder for ourselves to become successful. And so willpower is basically a commitment to something and then making your environment incredibly and utterly easy for you to be committed to that thing. So when we look at the equation for self-leadership, at least, and self-leadership is you are able to lead yourself towards the things that you care about, which could be defined as willpower.
Mm-hmm.
What you need is clarity. So then you can understand what you care about and why you care about it. And you have to understand how you expect to get there. So clarity of self and clarity of goals or actions. You need to have confidence in your ability to achieve it. So you need to believe that you have the skills and you have to believe in yourself ultimately overall. And then you need to have control, which means that you create an environment around yourself that serves your goals, your values, and your self-esteem and confidence, etc. I'd say one of the most important things in willpower outside of clarity and confidence, so those are like if you want to work on something that actually is going to help you make progress towards the thing you care about. Willpower can be anything. It could be I want to be committed to something that isn't actually good for me. It's your environment overall. So your relationships, the things that are in front of you. Like if I don't want to drink soda water, I shouldn't have soda water in front of me, which you can think is common sense. But so many people have built a life around themselves where it's almost impossible to be successful. I mean, it's just like social media. Let's say I want to stop using social media. Great. The number one thing you need to do, get rid of your phone. People be like, what do you mean get rid of my phone? Be like, get rid of your phone. Get a flip phone until you stop caring about social media. Not delete the app off your phone. That's not the solution.
It's too easy.
Yeah. How do you create an environment where to fail is so much harder than to succeed?
Yeah, the easiest like example is, and I just had this experience, like being at my parents' house, is like eating, just having like different food in the house, and when I'm here, I have like so much control over what's in the house. Like I have roommates and they have their own food, but that's just like, it's never a thought of like, oh, I can eat their food, because obviously it's just boundaries there. And so I have so much control over it here, and then I'm back home and I get to see like, oh, this is what happens when things are off, and when there are things in front of me that I wouldn't choose to have in front of me. But yeah, being like conscious about that. Are there other examples of things that people have in their environments without even recognizing it?
People, generally. So you want to be more positive. You want to be more growth oriented. You want to achieve a certain goal or profession. Well, the people that you have around you are going to support that or not. The worst is like the negative individual, or the individual that wants to keep you where you are, because if you get further, then you're going to be past them. So your closest relationships, I think we've all heard this before, or some of us has. You are a product of your 5 closest relationships, plus or minus a small percentage. And I'd say it's less about, how much money they're making and where they're at, and more about like how much they support whatever you're trying to achieve. Now, yes, you want to have mentors and stuff like that, but more so it's important, are you surrounding yourself with negativity? And so a lot of times you see this with exes. A lot of times you see this maybe even with family. People, toxic boss, people that we feel that we have a responsibility towards, but we actually don't, and not at all. And that level of toxicity and poison within your current environment, and more so think about how much of your mental capacity that they take up on a day-to-day basis is going to prevent you from being able to dedicate your time, your energy, or your willpower to something that you want to achieve. Because something that you're not used to doing, something that it's not automatic to you, or habit. And that's honestly like willpower is, I'd say you have habits and then you have willpower. And I think the bucket of willpower that you need to use from it that isn't a habit is massive in comparison to, I do this thing, it's automatic because I do it. It is me. So the bucket of willpower that you, like the amount that you need to use is so small. When something isn't a habit yet, you need so much energy for it. So if you're trying to create change in your life, but you're dedicating so much of yourself and your energy and your mental capacity to things that are not that thing, you're going to have nothing left. And so you're in long, short, right? The people that you have around you.
That's huge. Yeah. So yeah, it's about the way that they, not necessarily where they are at, but just the way that they engage with you and the way that they like see what you're doing and respond to it. And if it comes off in a way that's negative, or has that kind of pulling you back type of thing, where you're kind of like running through jello trying to get towards your goals because of all these things that you're hearing from the people around you. Yeah,
just right now you can write down, the 10 is a big number, because some people generally have like 2 to 3 close relationships, but 10, like the closest people that you spend time with, that 10, that list, whatever that is, it could be family, friends, strangers if you go somewhere a lot, I guess. And just do like a plus or minus next to them. Like the majority of the time, are they a positive addition or negative addition to your life? Do they drain you or fulfill you? And if you have any negatives on that list, then those are the people that, at least you're trying to make a change in your life and trying to create progress. Those people generally you have to take a break for them, because you cannot spare the battery for those types of people in your life right now. Now, if your willpower was to fix that relationship, that's different. Like if I'm committing now to try to fix this relationship, then understand though that you're not going to have a lot left for anything else. And one of the things that with willpower that we try to do everything. We try to do too much. It's the new year right now. How many goals can I set for myself? I said, no. Like, what's one thing you want to do? Last year, personally, I want to learn Spanish. That's the only thing I took on from that didn't have anything to do with me professionally. Professionally, I wanted to write a book. I go, great. If I'm dedicating my time to write this book, then I have to let go of everything else right now. It's very easy for us to say, I want to do X instead of I am committing to do X. And if we can move from this mindset of I don't have and I need to I'm interested in and like only focus on that one thing right now, I think we actually are a lot stronger, a lot more capable than we think we are. And once we commit to say, I'm going to commit to learning Spanish, that's my commitment. Now I have to look at my environment and say, well, what do I need to change? And before even that, though, I'm not even going to make any changes yet. I'm just going to do the commitment. How do I show up tomorrow? Okay, and then look at all the things that get in your way. And then you start being able to make adjustments in your life and your environment to then actually make that commitment work. And very often people they goal set in the wrong way, where they pick all these different goals and then they try to change their life. Instead of pick one goal, see how it interacts within their current life, and then try to change things and try to make improvements. Let me simplify this. When I try to coach clients, a coach says, I want to do something. And I go, why? Let's talk about the motivation. We find the connection between meaning within them to create motivation. Great. Try it for a week. What's like the one thing you want to try? We check back in after a week. Generally doesn't work. What got in the way? And then we start looking at the things that got in the way and start changing those and adapting those and then fitting the goal into their life so they can actually make the commitment to it.
So taking a step back, what's your process for actually identifying that like thing? Like for you learning Spanish, how did you decide like this is the one thing, or writing a book, this is the one thing?
Yeah. Well, first off, let go of judgment. I think there's a lot of people telling you what you should or shouldn't do with your life and your time. For me, Spanish matters because it's a way of feeding one aspect of one of my main values. So my number one value is health. How did I figure that out? A lot of introspection, a lot of exploration of previous defining moments in my life. We can talk about that. We can look at those major milestones. But health, and it's not just health, we have to define that value. So it's mental, spiritual, physical, emotional. It has different facets. Now, in my life right now, I am feeding different pillars within that value in different ways, but I have not fed the kind of the mental one in a way that's through a language as much. And so Spanish became the thing for me because I go, well, I'm traveling all these places. What would make me enjoy these places more? Being able to connect with locals and have a sense of adventure within these different locations. Well, what do I need to dedicate my time and energy to then, as it relates to like my mental growth and learning? And I can take on the challenge of Spanish right now. And of all the languages that I wanted to learn, this one seemed to have a direct impact to where else I'm spending my time. And I made the commitment to say, look, if I want to learn this, I'm going to have to dedicate a couple of years to it at least. I'm probably going to have to do an immersion. And all the different branches of like learning this thing relate to other values that I have and other interests that I have. And so like, where do I get the most bang for my buck?
Mm-hmm. And what do you do when other like things pop up where you're like, oh, maybe I want to do this? How do you keep yourself on the path?
I mean, willpower is less about what you're saying yes to and more what you're saying no to. And you just say, is this still important to me?
Mm-hmm.
And if the answer is yes, then you keep doing what you're doing.
You keep doing that.
I think we live in a day and age where there are so many different ways, and I'll use like health optimization more so to take care of yourself. You could eat a certain way, you could avoid certain things, you could work out a certain way. Like, for example, I bought a red light. But other than a red light, what kind of red light do you want to buy? Do you want to buy a head red light, a skin red light, a body red light? But you have a red light. What about like a cold plunge? You get a cold plunge too, or should you get like a sauna? And it's again less about what you're saying yes to, more what you're saying no to. I chose a red light because it integrates into my morning routine in a way that like seemed right to me at the time. It seems to have more benefits for me. It related to kind of like this one step that I could take and see if I can integrate that into my morning routine. Then once that's become a commitment and I don't have to use willpower to do it, what else might I potentially want to integrate? Mm-hmm. And so understanding that like by saying no to something isn't no always, but it's no for right now because you're building habits and commitments into yourself that are going to serve you in the future. And you're choosing one based on what you know about yourself, your current environment, maybe even the people that you're around, because it's easier for you to do that thing. Mm-hmm. Yeah, sorry, going back to the question of like, how do you choose? I'm pausing because people, I think, put too much energy into how do I choose. And it's less about like, how do I make sure I'm picking the right thing, to how do I pick something that I feel good about? That's going to bring me value, joy, growth, whatever that is. And if it does that, then why not choose that thing now? Do it for 3 months or 6 months, and then see how it goes, and then maybe choose something else again 6 months later. Because you're really not losing anything if it is adding value to your life.
Yeah, it's like you can stress over picking the exact right thing and then spend that entire time basically going nowhere, but just thinking about different options. Or you could just pick something and go with it. And then
I work with leaders on career development, and I can't tell you how many times it's happened this morning. I was on a call where someone goes, well, I don't know what I want to do. I go, great. Okay. He's like, well, I could do A or I could do B. And I go, well, you could do C, you could do D, you could do E, you could F. There's a lot of things you could do. But not choosing is just going to guarantee that you stay where you are right now today. Waiting for the world to react and tell you what to do, you're never going to choose anything, because you're not getting any more information. You're not proactively creating a life for yourself. I think there's a quote, right? What's the, like, death is stagnation in a way. And I tell you, anytime that I've let the world choose for me, because you can listen to the world and then make a choice and take an action. But anytime you let the world choose for you and try to give you information instead of trying to go create it for yourself, you're generally not leading yourself. You're generally not going to end up somewhere that you're going to feel is more fulfilling, because you're going to feel like you actually didn't have much of an impact within it. Mm-hmm. We lost our mascot.
I know. She went in the corner. Yeah. So what? How long was the idea for the book in your head?
So the book was an evolution of action. So I wrote a book in the past, wasn't ready to write a book for this company because I didn't feel like I had enough to say yet. Didn't hit like a certain pinnacle. But through my own content creation, I was releasing weekly episodes called Fearless Fridays, where I just spoke for 2 or 3 minutes about a topic that I felt was important, that could add value to your life. Like, what's the one thing you could do this weekend that could create something new for you? Be a little bit more fearless. And there was a lot of positive feedback from the audience around that. So these are resonating. It's also how I learn. I learn in, let's find the one thing that I want to take action on and go do it, and then reflect on that action and learn from it and grow, and then take another action. We learn by doing, and then reflecting on that doing, and then integrating something new into our life. So I was getting all this positive feedback, and then eventually I did it for about 1.5 to 2 years. I had a lot of weeks of Fearless Fridays, and it just hit me one day, and I said, oh wow, well, everything I teach around living for yourself, around being fearless, around creating a life that you feel more fulfilled or called to do, is about being fearless. It's about saying I don't care to the I don't know. And every single person I spoke to prior to jumping into a program was afraid. And I said, great, okay, so how do we make people become more fearless? And had all this content. So then spending 2 years transcribing, editing, throwing stuff out, writing things that weren't there, having beta readers, and the book was created. Nowadays, man, I could have used AI to like transcribe all those podcasts and all that stuff, but wasn't at the time.
And what, let's talk about the actual book itself then. So how do I become fearless? What are my steps?
Yeah, well, fearless really just means that you don't allow an emotion to hold you back from doing something you care about. Basically, willpower. Mm-hmm. What's something you are afraid of, or someone's afraid of?
I could tell one of my goals for this year is to do a stand-up comedy open mic.
Very cool.
I've never done it before. I'm terrified of like speaking in front of people. So that, yeah.
Okay. So how do you feel when you think about jumping on stage?
It's hard to even put myself there, to even like imagine what that would be like. I feel kind of just frozen, I think. Like there's definitely like anxiety, but then also just like, like a constriction.
Mm-hmm. Okay. What are some thoughts that you have? So you're frozen, you have some anxiety. What do you think about when you think about going on stage?
I think I won't be funny. I won't like remember what to say. I also think that it could be fun, and I have the thought that I'll probably feel good about it afterward.
And what beliefs do you have about doing stand-up?
My belief is that it would be Kind of similar. I believe it would be really good for me, and it could be a really fun thing to do.
Okay. And what, I guess, is preventing you from signing up to do stand-up next week?
Probably that anxiety, that constriction feeling, not wanting it to be real, wanting to push it into the future.
So if I signed you up for stand-up next week, or any of the listeners did, and put your name on some sort of stand-up board and sent you an email about it, your time slot, what would you do?
I would probably start writing, and I'd probably do it.
Okay. Do you have anything written so far?
Not really.
Okay.
Nothing I would feel confident about.
Okay. So there's a goal to do stand-up, to be on stage.
Mm-hmm.
You need to write something? Do you need jokes or stories?
I think so, yeah.
Yeah.
I think I would.
Okay. So there's this gap between like here to stage, which is like feeling good about what you've written and stuff. Okay. Yeah. But there's the anxiety and the frozenness that is like kind of keeping you from all of that lovely content or action, or even just setting a date. Okay. Interesting. So becoming fearless isn't going to walk you through these different steps, but it is going to tell you to think about your thoughts and to feel your feelings and to not believe your beliefs, because those are the things that hold you back, and it'll give you something to do in each of those situations. Like it'll tell you to feel your feelings a little bit more. It'll tell you to think about your thoughts. So you'll write down your thoughts in a certain way and try to reframe them. It'll have you explore your beliefs in the same way, kind of try to understand where they come from and what kind of belief you might want to have. And it will look at something that you want to do and offer you a small little action or quick little win that you could do to take action. So right now, like with the fear cycle, you kind of have this like frozen anxiety. Like I want to do this comedy. I feel frozen. I have anxiety. So then no action. So then I want to do stand up. I'm going to set a goal, but frozen, anxiety, no action. So you're kind of caught in this fear cycle. And maybe you end up focusing on like not being good, not being funny, like failing, etc. We have to somehow interrupt that cycle. We have to somehow get away from this kind of perpetual like infinity loop that you're in. And to do that, we need to generally take some sort of action that's going to interrupt the fear and the anxiety. So that action might be setting aside 15 minutes to watch stand up. That action might be talking to someone that does stand up. That action might be writing down one joke and sharing it with your girlfriend or a friend. The action might be going to stand up and making sure you go 30 minutes early to talk to the comedians. It might be spending an extra 20 minutes at a stand-up place to also, talk to the comedians or talk to the owner. It might be seeing how people sign up. So like you're looking at all these little tiny actions that you can take that are going to eventually build clarity within what needs to happen, confidence in yourself, and then eventually you're going to figure out, how do I create an environment where I'm more likely to invest time in this? But without that action, without those interrupts, you're going to be constantly caught into that cycle. And so the book itself goes through 65 different strategies and different moments and areas of our life, from our personal life to our professional life, and talks about the issue that you're having. And then it's each strategy is a page. I'll give you a book after this if you don't have one, and suggests an action that you can take to then interrupt that cycle.
Okay. So it's really about just breaking that cycle of inaction.
Yeah. Fear in itself is not a bad thing if it motivates action. The problem is fear generally demotivates action. It's, I want to do this thing, I'm afraid, so I don't do it. It's just information that we're interpreting as a reason not to do something. We have to train ourselves to see fear as a reason to question and do something instead of to not do something. So for example, like I can't imagine someone jumping out of a plane doesn't feel fear, but they've done it enough where they might equate it to excitement. Or before they're going to jump from a plane, they've been around enough people to be excited. They've created like some sort of environment or mental belief that jumping out of a plane is exciting to them more than the fear itself.
Yeah. So I used to have this huge fear of talking to women, like strangers that I was interested in. And what just resonated was I ended up getting over that just by doing it over and over and over, and kind of getting used to rejection and figuring out how to go through the fear. And that's how I met my girlfriend, and the end of that. But I saw this piece of advice one time that was like, if you see someone you want to talk to and you're like really scared about it, just start walking towards them. That was it. Just start walking towards them. And that sounds like so simple, but that helped me a shit ton. Like just starting action. And that's breaking the cycle like you're talking about. It's getting out of the like, what's going to happen? Okay, no, I can't do it. I'm afraid. And then repeating that just by, okay, just take a step. Just do the first thing.
Yeah,
you don't even have to worry about what you're going to say. Just start
100%.
Walking.
Going back to what we were talking about earlier about willpower and commitments, when you realize that you can't make the final commitment, you make a lesser commitment. So I commit to walking towards someone I find attractive. Great. You can do that. I commit to saying hi to every person when I'm checking out at a store. Great. You could do that. Like, and so what are the small commitments you can take to start kind of chiseling away at the broader fear that you have? It's not about tackling it head on. People have this like, oh, I'm going to attack my fear. I'm going to conquer my fear. Like, no, actually, like that's not a very good way to do it. Like, you don't throw someone into the deep end of something they're really afraid of. Like you could if they have a lot of support, but generally we're by ourselves in our fear. So instead you do walk in, step by step in the shallow end. You do stand and slightly start walking towards the deep end. You give yourself minor commitments. And so like with talking with women, it's, I'm not even going to say anything. I'm just going to go high five. I'm going to high five everyone on the way to the person that I find attractive. So that I finally high five that person and then I walk away. And I do that 5 times today. That's my commitment. And then I'm going to reflect on that. How did I feel? What worked? What didn't work? What's something I can do that's a little bit greater than that to challenge myself a little bit more? So we have all these understandings when it comes to relationships. We have all these understandings with like applying for a job or getting a job, which sometimes we hold ourselves back. But when it comes to other things like stand-up comedy, it seems to be weird, but it's not. We can actually follow the same exact process.
Yeah, I'll definitely have to think through that. What are my like little micro commitments I can start making on the way towards that? Because it's still in my head like a thing I'm pushing into the future. That's like, one day I'll just decide to go to an open mic and sign up and do it, which is, but I could easily just start now, not doing that, but doing the things that would lead up to that.
Yeah, micro commitment. I think you probably listen to podcasts or read books. I'm going to read one book about stand-up. A micro commitment. I'm going to listen to one podcast a week, not of stand-up, but about giving stand-up. I'm going to go to a stand-up show once a week and make sure I arrive 30 minutes early to talk to the comedian. And I'm going to ask, how do you prepare? How do you work? I want to do this. And so like, what are the micro commitments you can set to start defining yourself as a stand-up comedian? And that's actually one of the things that we work when I work with individuals that are trying to transition careers or become more of an executive leader. It's the story you tell yourself generally is going to lead to the actions you take for yourself. And so how are you now also redefining who you are and how you look at yourself? Yeah.
Do you recommend using accountability for these things? Because that's probably the only kind of commitment I've made is just telling, like, this is the first time I've said it on here, but I've just told like people I'm close with.
Yeah. So I say always start with, I'm going to do this for myself. And then depending on results, increase how you have to then adjust. So like you find yourself, if you find you can't walk towards a woman, going to this example because it's so easy to use, then it's, okay, well, if I can't walk towards them, can I walk backwards towards them? No, it's like, can I walk sideways towards them? But maybe it's, I need to go with a friend. I need to give my friend $100 and I don't get that $100 back until I do this thing. So with comedy, maybe you do use accountability, but you have to see what works and what doesn't work for you. So like, for example, when I was working with a friend who wanted to go to the gym more, we did that. He gave me $100 every week. I didn't give him $100 back until he went to the gym 3 times. And you could do any variation of that, something else, something that they care about. You could be, I go with somebody, because I'm sure it could be that I join a meetup group for stand-up comedy, which I'm sure they have. What is the level of accountability you need to be successful? Instead of just kind of diving in and being like, I'm going to use accountability all the time. I'm going to download this app or get this guide or book. And all of a sudden now what you're doing is you're putting more things in between you and your goal.
Right.
Which can just detract from it.
Yeah, that's a common thing with dating for guys I know is like reading more books or watching more videos and just constantly consuming and never actually taking real steps.
Yeah. So if your commitment to facing your fear is, I'm going to learn a bunch, and then you find out that learning is a detractor, you go, great, I've learned enough now. What's my next step? So now I'm not learning. I'm not watching videos. I'm not reading books. I'm journaling and I'm, setting myself up with one commitment. Oh, I can't keep that commitment. who do I know that I trust that I can bring into this, fold that I can have hold me accountable? And well, how do I hold myself accountable? And you come up with different strategies for that.
Cool. Okay. So what has been your career trajectory up to now?
Well, right now, I split my time as a career coach for leaders and a leadership consultant and executive coach. So, and the difference between is I'm with big companies pay me, and then also people pay me. So that's kind of how you split those two different fields. Prior to that, before my learning and talent development world, I was actually in healthcare for almost 7 years. And I was a manager of business operations, and I was in quality improvement, improving patient satisfaction and clinical outcomes for patients. And lo and behold, didn't feel that work was meaningful. So it's kind of weird. I work in healthcare and didn't feel that it was meaningful. And had some pretty toxic leadership around me. And because of that toxic leadership, realized the importance of leadership and the importance of career and professional clarity and success and job satisfaction. And so that's kind of when I went into the leadership development space. But I was like, that healthcare moment was really important to me because it highlighted how hopeless so many people feel within their career, and because of past experiences. So when I was working in healthcare, what happened before that was I wanted to be a professional soccer player and didn't work out. And that is like the softest way I can say that, because when you want to be a professional soccer player, you dedicate every single moment of your life to it, to eating tuna out of a can. That's where I got interested in nutrition, to watching cassette tapes of you playing over and over and over again, to practicing 3 times a day. That dedication is great, willpower, awesome, but also totally destroyed my sense of self, my sense of identity, any semblance of potentially having like positive relationships. You talk about dating, like I was so socially awkward. It was my sense of self was soccer and was focused on external validation. When I lost that, I was left with nothing, and also this like socially awkward kid. So then fast forward, being interested in nutrition, them canceling my major, being interested in public health, working in public health, and then having 4 jobs canceled before starting, like literally job offer, cut, job offer, cut, job offer, cut over the past like 3 or 4 years. Like that level of career, you can say trauma, but like negative experiences led me to feel that like work wasn't supposed to work out. So then to have toxic leadership around me within this healthcare space, I was just angry at my boss. I was angry at the organization. It was in a really negative headspace when it came to work. Lo and behold, I ended up getting a leadership coach because of this leadership program that shows that there's this path forward within this industry that I didn't know existed. Now, going alongside of like parallel to this trajectory of Ben's unhappy at work, I also had these entrepreneurial tendencies. And I was learning about dating and relationships and being kind of social. And so I devoured books and videos and all these things. And this is where we talked on our boardwalk, by the way. And I randomly ended up getting headhunted. Like I was at a bar. This guy came up to me. He's like, Ben, like I can tell you've read some books and watched some videos. I want you to meet my boss. He hired me to be a nationwide men's coach, and like Men's Health, Ask Men, all these types of things. And I basically ended up falling into this coaching business and then learning from him for a year how to be a coach, and then saying like, I don't like how you're coaching. I don't like how you're operating. And then ended up building a business for 5 or 6 years out of like, kind of like I fell into it, but never really thought that that's what I wanted to do for my career. And so now I'm working in healthcare, unhappy with toxic leadership, not wanting to do that for my career, but ending up doing it because out of necessity, because the other stuff didn't work out. And also being a coach and having a business that I didn't care about, that I created out of necessity because it was an opportunist. And a lot of people end up in their career in jobs that they ended up reacting to things that happened to them. And then all of a sudden they wonder why they're unhappy, wonder why they feel stuck, wonder why they don't feel fulfilled. And so being in that leadership development program was such a wake-up call where I was able to stop everything and say, look, I'm doing these things because the opportunity came up, because I felt helpless within my career. I didn't feel like I could pave my path forwards. If I did want to pave my path forwards, what would I create? And that's where I started looking at I did a career audit and started figuring out like what are the things I was drawn to, what I was passionate about, and how did I want to build that into a career moving forwards. Shut down the business, left healthcare, after I got my doctorate, and just built this kind of platform in this business since then. So it's been like 6 years since then.
So the negative cycle for you was that feeling that Yeah, I mean, to me, it feels like a scarcity of like, if you get a job, you need to keep that and like take it, basically. Was that where you were at?
I was doing things I didn't really care to do, but I was doing them because they brought you money and were part of being a professional. So I was just investing in things that didn't really matter. Like when I was finishing up my doctorate degree, which is what I wanted to do, I was working in healthcare full time. I was bartending full time, and I was running this coaching practice full time. And I was working a bunch of odd jobs as well. I saw work as a way to develop personality traits and skills and to earn a certain level of financial wealth. I did not see it as, because it disappointed me, and the things that I cared about disappointed me. I didn't see it as something that should be fulfilling, needed to be fulfilling. I actually, on the other hand, I didn't, like when you said the scarcity mindset, I actually built a professional life where I never had to rely on anybody. I had like 3 or 4 different income streams. And I also still believe today that when it comes to your professional life, you're more than your company, you're more than your role. You should have some level of autonomy when it comes, and self-confidence when it comes to being able to create a life that you want for yourself that's outside of just your employer and your organization. What I was missing was this understanding of like fulfillment and meaning, because that's what burned me so much in the past. The first ever talk that I gave was actually the worst advice I've ever received, was find your purpose. That was like that was my TEDx talk. And it was true, because I felt that you had to find your purpose from something that you were doing instead of really the truth of it, which is create your purpose. It's not something your organization is going to give you. It's not something you're going to find at some sort of random job. It's something that you're going to change. It's going to create from your own actions, as well as how you perceive the work that you're doing. And so that's what I was missing. And I was missing that not just because of my job, but it was more so my perception of it, and as well as toxic leadership. So when I went to go develop my own career, it was, how do I fix myself? So job crafting, how do I create a job that aligns with what I want today? How do I have pride in my work? At the same time, I recognize that some situations, like you just have some really terrible bosses and really terrible work environments, and that there are some things that you can't change. You have to go leave to go create. And so then I also became really passionate about helping leaders become better leaders within organizations too.
Was there ever how do you help people with the idea of finances? Like say their thing they found, their ideal job role is like something that's just going to be much less financially rewarding than, what they are currently doing, or something else they have the skills for.
Yeah, we live in a capitalistic society, don't we? Earn a certain amount of money. Why not just stop doing everything and go into finance, right? Wear a bunch of puffy jackets. There are some industries that pay less, yeah. But does that mean that you have to earn less? So depending on what you want to do for a living, you can create a potential work like life around yourself that has multiple streams of income that you earn in different ways. It might not be doing exactly what you want to be doing or need to be doing, but it can create the lifestyle that you want. Like example, I could be making more money as an executive, and well, maybe not. I could be earning a certain amount of money being an executive in an organization. I could go on, when I was working in healthcare, I could have stayed that path, ended up being probably a COO or CEO of a hospital. Could do that. I also knew that, okay, moving into coaching, it's going to take me 3 to 5 years to build revenue. If I'm going to want to earn a certain amount per client, because you work backwards from the amount of money you want to earn overall, you have to charge a certain amount of money, so I have to serve a certain type of client. So then I have to figure out, well, how do I become credible to that type of client? Okay, I have to get my doctorate degree. At the same time, coaching is it fluctuates. It's an interesting industry. So then how do I build the other side of the seesaw? Well, why don't I go into consulting as well? And so, yes, there are some sacrifices in terms of how do you serve the market that you're interested in, but you can strategize different ways to earn the amount of money that you want to earn overall. And, I also have other faucets that I can turn on. I have other partnerships that I can turn on when I need to. So let's say you're working as a software engineer, or you're working in tech or something, and you're like, well, what I really want to do is I want to go work in this industry, but it generally is making about 25% what I would be earning in tech. Well, you can create multiple 25%, so you earn the 100% that you would be in tech. Or you can work in tech for 4, 5, 6 years or whatever it is, save up a bunch of money, and then end up building a different type of product or business that maybe integrates the two. I can't sit here and say that like every industry is going to make it the same as every other industry, because I work with people in different industries. I know the huge gaps between them. But through building multiple jobs, different income streams, building investments and assets within the industry and space that you're in that could also earn you money, investing in a certain way, and then also watching your spending, like you can create the same type of pie in each different world. It's just going to take different levels of strategy.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, so it's being a little more creative and not just accepting what is like it's told to you. It's like, oh, this job makes less money.
Also,
challenging it a little bit.
Also, like the person that goes to law school and gets a job, right away, or someone that goes into finance and works a couple of years, ends up getting, working for a hedge fund or family practice or a PE firm, like their level of income that they could earn in their first couple of years is probably like much higher than a lot of other industries. Mm-hmm. Like you kind of see these like wage gaps occur during kind of the first, 10 to 20 years of your career, because industries pay differently depending on that level of individual. But what you can earn though, like within that, like, your 30s to 50s or 30s to 60s nowadays, maybe 40s to 60s, those are your prime earning years. You generally end up with certain saving practices can end up kind of meeting your salary requirements over time. It just may take, in those early years, a different strategy and mm-hmm. less spending and less earnings and such. It's tough, to think that like, well, if I just don't do the thing that is meaningful to me, then I'll make all this awesome money. And then, the question is then like, okay, well, what would you do with the money? Well, I'll do things that are meaningful. Oh, well, what if you do things that are meaningful now? And do you have a specific example of just what you're thinking about?
Not very much, not a very specific. It's more along the lines of like going into entrepreneurship and just the acceptance that you're not going to have a regular paycheck. But I think there's always the upside as well. Have you heard the parable of the Mexican fisherman?
The guy that comes to say that he could be making all this money and build factories and all this stuff, so he can go back and be a fisherman. Yeah,
exactly.
Yeah,
that's what I was thinking of.
And I think we first for ourselves question why we want the money. As you said, like, well, I'm going to want the money to fish. Well, okay, you're fishing now. Mm-hmm. And so then try to find the joy in what you're doing today. And then also, what are your expectations for earning? Like, how much money do you want to earn? And you don't need to earn that tomorrow or next month or a year from now. You should enjoy the journey to whatever amount that is. Be realistic about the steps you're going to need to take to get there. Like I said, like, what client will I have to serve? Okay, great. How do I build a brand to attract the type of client? So instead of my goal being I need to earn this amount of money, it's what am I doing right now to build the environment around myself of executives, of leaders? What qualifications am I getting? And seeing it as, this longer term play. Like, for example, when I decided to go back to get my doctorate, that was a 3-year commitment, period. I'm not going to get people to treat me like a doctor before those 3 years. I can't. So what can I do till then to ensure that I have the foundation that when I get that degree, like, what am I going to do? And so depending on what your number is, you can actually work backwards from there to build a career path to that number. Because generally, if you're putting in the effort, like an entrepreneur, every entrepreneur that I know that's successful has 6 to 10 failures that have led to that success. And every person that I know that's incredibly wealthy today through entrepreneurship was like almost bankrupt, like 2 or 3 times in their life. And it's like the amount of money you have now is not going to be the amount of money that you have later. And how do you then build that journey mentally so you feel comfortable with the amount of money that you have now? Or how do you sacrifice, like, the fact that I was bartending full time, while going to school full time, while working full time, while building business full time? What sacrifices are you willing to make? Bartending for me was awesome at that time. I was single. As a guy in Chicago, I wanted access to festivals and different bars and clubs and all those types of things. I wanted to be social. I'm a little bit of an introvert. We were talking about like sci-fi books earlier. And so what is the thing that you can do to earn the money that you want, but still also feed other aspects of your soul too?
Yeah. So going off that, do you have any big failures in your past?
I mean, depending on
I'd
what
say.
you call a failure. Yeah, it depends on how you define it. Right? Not being a professional athlete, that was a failure, but worked out pretty well for myself. Working in public health and them cutting funding and then 4 job offers all canceled. Those are kind of failures. The coaching practice that I didn't care about, shutting it down. Is that a failure? The podcast that was going for 5-6 years, that I shut down. All the relationships that I've had prior to meeting my fiance, failure, right? In a way. Yeah. I launched a supplement. And so I made a commitment to launch Live for Yourself Consulting and made a point to myself that I wasn't going to launch anything else. And I made that decision because it was just, you can tell after doing multiple things that every aspect of yourself that you're investing time, energy, and mental capacity into is going to take away the opportunity for success from anything else that you're doing. It's like, if you're monogamous, why do you date one person? Because you think that if I have other types of relationships, then I'm going to take away from my potential relationship and it's going to lead to less success potentially in that. Same thing with your career. And so when I launched Live for Yourself Consulting, I made the point just to focus on that. And I had this random conversation while watching this beautiful orchestra play in Chicago. I was sitting on a field. It was summer. I was sitting with one of my friends. She was talking to me about a breakup she recently had. And she goes, it was really tough. It's difficult. Emotionally, I can't handle it. I can't manage it. And I go, yeah, it'd be great if you could just take a pill for that. And she goes, I would take that. I go, what a great business idea. And so sometimes you make sacrifices. You say, okay, I'm going to build this one thing. I'm going to build it knowing that it's going to hold me back in my current business, but I'm going to put a timeline on it. And people generally don't do this. I'm going to say, I'm going to do one run. I'm going to spend $1,500 to get a bunch of bottles. I'm going to do Amazon, be fulfillment. I'm going to do one ad campaign, nothing else. And if it doesn't take off, I'm letting it go. And we generally have a growth plan, but we don't have an exit plan. Mm-hmm. And so with that business, I had it for a year. I did the formula, I white labeled, I ended up getting in front of PepsiCo and all this kind of stuff. I sold out, I broke even, but it never took off. And I had the decision. I said, do I invest in this or do I invest in this? And I think people go, well, I can invest in both. Well, no, you can't. It's very difficult unless you have someone else running one of those things. So I just let it go. And now I tell everyone about it because I want someone to build it. And so they ended up, my first ever business that I didn't launch, I also tell everyone around Omega. It's called Omega Bean. It was an omega-3 infused coffee because I thought we should get our daily omega-3s through our daily habits. Mm-hmm. Simplify your health, simplify your life. And so there are now supplements like nootropics that reduce anxiety that people can take for breakup supplements, which is what the business was. And but you have to give yourself not just the belief and the confidence to succeed, but also the confidence that you're going to know when to exit and leave.
To get out. Yeah. Yeah, that's a hard one. It's like making a commitment, but with not getting married to it at the same idea. Not being like, this is my baby that I'm going to keep forever.
Yeah, and having that be realistic. So with a coaching and consultancy, you have to understand that it takes 3 to 5 years for yourself to be successful in it. And there might be some people that are successful right away. There might be some people that are never successful, but generally you have to know the average and be realistic. I know so many coaches, and I see it happen. I've seen it happen. They start, they work for 6 months, they have content generate, and then after 6 months, their target client is not interested, but people around their current social network are interested because they want to be coaches. So that coach switches to be a coach for coaches, does that for about another 6 months to 8 months to a year, realizes that also isn't sustainable because they didn't learn how to build a coaching practice. They just changed their target client. So then they changed their target client again for about another 6 months, and that didn't work. So they changed their target client again for another 6 months. And then maybe they go back and get a certification, or they end up giving up and doing something else because they didn't commit to say, I'm doing this thing. I'm going to serve this clientele for 2 to 3 years. I'm going to adapt depending on how the market's reacting, and I'm going to build this business. Not I'm going to change my business constantly from a place of fear, from a place that I'm not successful. You see this a lot in entrepreneurship and any business, and that's why they never succeed, because they've never actually invested in the business they were building. They were investing in whatever was from a place of fear and potentially what was going to give them more money at the time.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, just kind of flowing with the tide and not choosing your own
Yeah, and it's not to say don't change certain aspects of the business. Like when I created Live for Yourself Consulting, the tagline was take control of your life. That's what I believe. No one knew what that was. So I go, wait, okay, develop your internal leader. No one knew what internal leader meant. If you Google internal leader, you get a different definition. I go, oh, self-leadership. That's what it is. And all of a sudden, that resonated with my audience. And so it's like you're not changing the business, you're changing the language you're using to connect with your client.
Mm-hmm. What is a piece of advice that only you could give?
No, I don't. I'm not that important.
There's got to be something.
I'm not that important. Only thing that I can give,
Something.
go to the doctor when you break your pinky, because if not, it's going to heal, and that's going to be as much as you can bend it.
You can't.
No, that's it, man. You can try pulling it, pushing it. You can't. It's as far as I go.
Okay. So
Yeah.
go to the doctor when you break your pinky.
Go to the doctor when you break your pinky. I went to the ER. They said it wrong, and then it healed wrong. They told me to go to a specialist, and I never went. So go see a specialist.
How'd you break it?
Playing soccer. Got caught in someone's shirt and just snapped. But it was cold out, so I didn't really feel like anything.
Have you broken any other bones?
Yeah, as an athlete, I highly recommend any other athletes to invest more time in rehab bands and PT and stretching and yoga throughout your life, because injuries happen. I broke my left ankle. I broke my left hand here, an external pin. What else? I had didn't break my hip, but had hip surgery because of some issues. And yeah, a lot of the little things. Split my head open, stapled it up. Split my chin open, they stitched it up. All those fun things. Split my eyebrow open. Not even a fighter. So taking it back to like advice though, it's not advice that I can only give, because I feel like advice is just regurgitation over the years through people's experiences. Mm-hmm. This idea that you're supposed to find this thing that's meaningful and invest all your time and energy into it is such a strain. It's like this. It's a product of like our purposeless, capitalistic, option-filled society, whatever it is. And on the surface, it seems like really great information, but it also creates a sense of lack from ourselves, in a sense that we need to complete certain things and be successful. We need to act a certain way and hold ourselves to willpower, when all of that is like a creation of self. Like my purpose, I created it. The goal that I have, I created it. This idea that I need to have willpower, I created it. Like it's all these things are some part of myself developed it because of inputs that I've had. Great. That's probably the most important thing to know, because if we don't recognize that I created it, then what happens is I need to bow to it. And our purpose, our meaning, all those types of things are not here because it makes us better. They're here because they bring us fulfillment and joy and growth and give us a target and a challenge. The moment that thing starts becoming a weight, a burden, a stress, something that makes us feel less than for ourselves, we are now putting it on a pedestal. We are now looking at it in a way like we would looking at someone that we think is better than us because they have more money than us. We're misusing our purpose. And so that I'd say that was one of the greatest things I've learned through my pursuit of soccer and pursuit of entrepreneurship and all those types of things, is this constant reminder that everything you're working towards is there because it's supposed to bring you joy and fulfillment or wealth or whatever it is that you want to succeed, to do. But it by no means means that you're less than or not enough, or nothing's wrong with going to make all that money before going back to it. Mm-hmm. It's just a thing in our life that we created.
Yeah. It's not. Yeah. Okay. I think I understand. It's not something it's something that's for you. It's for you to make for yourself. And it's not something that you are bound to.
Yeah. So to maybe use something in our lives. So what is something that you feel is really meaningful to you, or really your purpose? Do we have an answer to that question yet?
For me, my purpose right now, it really just feels like being the best person I can be. That's like the highest level purpose I have.
Mm-hmm. Who defines what best is?
That's all me. Yeah. I think so.
Yeah. How do you explore like the things that you then want to dedicate your time and energy to?
I see if they help me become that person, that better person.
What's something that you're doing right now to be that better person?
Trying to reading regularly, and like journaling. So just being introspective and constantly thinking about how I am being.
So this is like I'll use this example and use another example just because it's like a simple way of saying it. So it's, let's say I wake up and I have this crazy anxiety about not reading today. And like I was so busy, I took care of my family, like dog got sick, or like all these things happened. And I was running around and all of a sudden, like I feel so terrible about myself. Like I can't believe I didn't read or journal today. I'm a terrible human. I'm an absolutely terrible human. And I'm like, well, I need to go to sleep now. It's late. And so like I'm going to stay up. I'm going to stay up and not sleep because I need to do this thing. If not, I'm not like a good person. That's like a negative way of handling our purpose or our meaning, the things that we feel are important. Instead, let's say something happens, you wake up, you don't feel that great. It's an off day, like you have to go take care of family or your girlfriend needs you or whatever it is. And then all of a sudden you think, oh man, I should like journal today. You're like, no, actually, you know what? Like today's not a journaling day. Like it's okay. Like the best version of myself is being present right now and taking care of what life is bringing for me.
Yeah.
So you have like on one side, the thing that's supposed to bring you meaning and joy is causing you stress. On the other side, the thing that is supposed to bring you joy is something that is, you know, that's what it is. It's a tool. Like, great. Most days I do this thing and I feel great about it. Like I have an unhealthy obsession with working out and health. I understand that. Where to the point where I'm flying out at like 4 a.m. I'm going to the gym at 2 a.m. Like I'm angry at my gym for not being open at 2 a.m. That's not healthy. Healthy is I have to wake up at 4 a.m. to go to the plane. Yeah, I'll bring some bands with me. If I want to work out later, I will. But life happened right now. And the thing that brings me joy, I'll like be able to do that thing. Like sleep will bring me more joy right now. I'll be healthier because of it. It's having a conscious decision-making process when it comes to the thing that brings you meaning and joy, and understanding that it's there for that purpose and nothing else. Not something that you have to do, that you're required to do, like no matter what, like if you don't do, you're not good enough. No, it's the thing. It's there.
Yeah. Not becoming a slave to that thing. And yeah.
And a lot of us are. We think that if we sacrifice ourselves for the things that brings us joy and meaning, even though it's detracting from our relationships, from our health, sometimes from our finances and from our wealth, that it's still good because it brings us meaning. Well, I'll challenge that. I'll say like maybe that's not the type of meaning that you need in your life right now.
Yeah. What is something you're currently struggling with?
My podcasts right now generally relate to the things I'm working through. So I have a bunch of podcasts right now about consciousness and philosophy and meaning and all those types of things. On the opposite hand, because you can go too far down the path of meaning is a tool, but if you don't believe that meaning has what's the purpose of things, right? So as right now, the thing that I'm processing is what matters and why. And when I say what matters and why, I know what I care about, I know my values and things like that. Meaning, like, does life matter? It's a bigger question. So the questioning is like, well, I understand relationships are important and closeness is important and loneliness is a thing, but are they really? Or like I understand that like having wealth and investments and money, all those things is like nice to have. Like, do I really care? And it's like knowing that we live in this like construct, this like, I'm getting a little like theoretical here, but we live in a society that we built. We operate by norms that were given to us. We even like the time that we look at and the watches that we use are because we're following this calendar. So right now I'm just more so working through like, I'm getting older. Why am I doing the things that I'm doing? Like, do they really matter? I'd be fine without them. Like struggling with this idea of opting out or opting in. And so like, do I want to just go to a cabin and leave everything behind? Why do I do podcasts? Why do I serve the people that I do? It brings me joy, but do I really need that joy? It's this like borderline of like nihilism and like meaning in life and purpose and all those types of things in a positive way.
Yeah, really looking at it from almost the outside, like because we do end up getting stuck in these patterns and doing these things that we think are important without even realizing that there are other ways of being and there are things that we can let go of. That that's like it feels like I can't let go of some things, but I could also imagine a life where I did.
Yeah, like I could totally become a hermit. Like, I am like, let's do it. Let's go get it. Bring my dog, chop some wood, live on my own, grow a beard, shaved recently, I can grow a beard. but then you have to like analyze the alternative. Like, okay, well, if I'm that, then what am I losing? What am I missing? Well, so why am I going to do yoga with my friends every week? Well, I'm doing that because I know that if I don't do that, I have a hard time creating positive social relationships, right? With certain people that I care about. So it's like this you're constantly making choices. And so you can say that you're like overthinking things if you do this, but at the same time, it's like what are you generally comfortable doing? And this is where fearlessness comes in again. We tend to fall into comfort a lot of times in our life. We have to question like, well, is that comfort serving me or not serving me? Comfort for me at times might be social isolation. It's not always going to be social isolation. So what is the discomfort that I need to put myself in to ensure that I have the life that I'm actually really interested in?
And what does your dream life look like?
So the dream life looks like waking up and having the first probably half of the day be dedicated towards some aspect of health. So you're rolling out, you're doing band work, you're maybe going for a run, you're doing like a red light, you're maybe with a friend, maybe having some aspect of socialness to it. Maybe you're doing a cold plunge, maybe you're doing a sauna, whatever it is, some aspect of health for almost half the day. Like you're looking at like a 3 to 5 hour window of that. And you could be listening to a podcast, a book, like whatever it is. If you can do that in nature, even better. Mm-hmm. Then it's probably about a 2 to 3 hour window of helping and coaching other people in their life and their business, being integrated into things that I care about that impact health. So like a wellness brand, health tech, digital health, mental health, psychedelic, like that kind of category of entrepreneur or client or person. Then it's like another health thing, like a 1 to 2 hour health thing. So am I stretching? Am I doing yoga? Am I going for a run? Am I doing red light again? Am I rolling out? And then there's some aspect of socializing, reading. So some aspect of like learning, and then some aspect of socializing. That's like the perfect day. You can interchange like giving. So I'm going to go volunteer at some like shelter or something, because I think, or reading to kids, or going to like inner city, because I've been blessed with my, where I am in life. And so there's health, there's work, there's giving back, there's health again, and then there's social.
That's a pretty good blueprint.
I thought about this the other day. I wrote it out. Yeah.
Because those are just like the most important pieces of life. And so you should break it down in that way.
Health is my number one value. And so everything that I do generally has some branch from that value. And so we get over-invested in goals. We need to be over-invested in values. So the thing that I'm choosing to do doesn't matter as much as the fact that that thing that I'm doing relates to the thing I care about. Mm-hmm. So health again, which is from physical, which also would have some aspect of probably, depending on how you're doing it in nature, it could be spiritual, but then mental and emotional, right? That could be the work that I'm doing, could be the learning that I'm doing, could be the giving back that I'm doing, could be the socializing that I'm doing.
Yeah. Dr. Benjamin Ritter, thanks for coming on. I really appreciate it.
Thanks for having me.
Can you tell everybody where to find out more about you?
Yeah. What's your address right now? They can, just kidding, because they can come here right now. They're gonna listen to this later.
Find you. Yep.
Yeah.
They'll just find me here. They'll find me in Reba.
Yeah. And then you can direct them. You can.
I'll say he went that way.
Yeah, he went that way. Follow him. I'll put breadcrumbs. So liveforyourselfconsulting.com is the name of my business. Liveforyourselfconsulting.com. And then I'm super active on LinkedIn. So Dr. Benjamin Ritter. There's no other me on LinkedIn yet. If someone arrives, then I'll figure out something else to say. But Dr. Benjamin Ritter.
Dr. Benjamin Ritter. Awesome. Thanks, man.
Thanks for having me.
Bye, everybody.